Hello, everybody. If you're here watching live, that's fantastic. If not, I'm going to do a YouTube video on this. As the title says, I'm going to be discussing my struggles with addiction, what's helped me, what's not helped me, how the military has helped me succeed in my struggles, with my struggles. This isn't going to be one of those Andrew Tate, super success, big money type inspiration kind of videos. This is trying to reach out to young men, 18 to 24-year-olds, those in college, before college, thinking about going to the military, those kind of guys, or girls for that matter too. So hopefully this rings true with some people. If not, I just want to get some advice, that's good too, but hopefully I can make an impact on someone who's watching, struggling with addiction, because I know there's a lot of people out there. So I was, at an early age, I kind of knew that I was pretty different than a lot of people. Just how I interacted with, family and friends, and always feeling kind of uncomfortable in my skin, uncomfortable around friends and family, and kind of just anxious a lot. And when I started getting older, I started experimenting with drugs. Weed obviously is the first for most. Drinking, smoking cigarettes, dip, all that dumb shit kids do to fit in and be cool, whether or not they're peer pressured in or escaping from trauma, home life, relationship. There's a variety of things that people turn to kind of shed the weight of reality. Drugs for some people is an outlet. 18, getting out of college that summer was pretty rough. At that point, I'd already started taking painkillers, sneaking into my father's cabinet. Pain medication was pretty ubiquitous back then. It was back in 2004, 2003, and onwards. I went to college for a brief time. It was only about 2 months, maybe a month and a half. I ended up getting kicked out because my roommate called the police on me because I had weed stashed in our common closet. But that was, in the end, it proved to be one of the more beneficial things in my life that caused me to eventually join the military ultimately. So after college, after getting kicked out of the Cal State Channel Islands, I went to Pasadena City College briefly before I chased a very toxic relationship up north, Santa Cruz. I was there I was about 20 years at the time, 20 years old at the time. Chased a girl up there, horrible toxic relationship. Again, one of those things that, blessing in disguise, breaking up. But while I was up there, the pain pills were getting expensive. And I turned to heroin, smoking heroin, which just led me to a path of absolute destruction. And more than just physical and mental. Family life was suffering. Friendships were suffering. Obviously, the relationship did not work out, and thankfully it didn't, because getting out of those relationships, toxic, going nowhere, constant fighting, zero support, was a huge detriment in my life, but I was obviously too young to realize, right? I didn't have the emotional maturity or emotional control I should have had to recognize that this was incredibly damaging to my life. And for you young men out there, don't give up anything to be with a woman or a girl, and if women, don't do the opposite to be with a man or a guy. Those early years are meant for, I'm going to get into it, are meant not for expending energy on other people. I believe that though for 18 to 24-year-old men, especially men, incredible, extremely difficult physical struggle is the best thing that's gonna set you up for massive success. I'll get into that later. So after I eventually came back home, living in my parents' house, 21, 22, 23 years old. Basically from 20 years old to about 24 years old, I was stuck at home, addicted to heroin, addicted to pills, addicted to marijuana, working odd jobs, kitchen jobs. Worked at Cheesecake Factory as a busboy in Pasadena, right there on Colorado and Fair Oaks. Basically all just to support a drug habit. I was going to school at the time, community college, spinning my wheels, not getting much forward progress, not really being able to hone in on something, a degree specific that was really interesting ultimately. Struggled a lot in my early 20s. Basically from 18 to 24 until I joined the military, it was nothing but struggle, and a wasted struggle. It wasn't then till I joined the military and went to boot camp where I actually found out that being sober is a lot more beneficial to my life, because I had an experience being sober for more than a day and a half or 2 days at any given time between 18 to 24 years old. So 6 years of being fucked up on either pills, Suboxone, methadone, heroin. It didn't matter what it was. I was constantly high with it, instead of whether it was one or all the above. Constantly messed up, high beyond belief every single day. I had joined the military at 24. I had gotten a nuclear submarine contract, which was exciting. I was, my parents were extremely happy. I was finally getting out of my hometown of Monrovia, California. LA, just a breeding ground, a cesspit for just depravity and immature behavior, because everything was accessible. Drugs, debauchery, clubs, all that bullshit it's all available and very prevalent and easily accessible. One sec. So, I joined the Navy, got shipped out on March of 2014, and went immediately to boot camp. I think it was around 8 to 10 weeks boot camp was. It was 10 years ago, so it's been a while. But that was the first time in my life where I was actually sober, apart from the month that I took off smoking weed and getting heroin to actually clean up and pass a drug test in the military. So I had about 3 months of sobriety up into graduating boot camp, which was an eye-opener. I didn't really know how to take it all in. Everything was new. Boot camp was it was annoying. if anything. You don't really learn much. It's just kind of a wake-up call for a lot of people, what to expect, what the Navy has to offer. I went to nuke school immediately following boot camp. I went to Charleston, South Carolina, studied nuclear physics. I was fortunate enough to maintain some intelligence about me where I scored decently enough on an ASVAB to get qualified for the nuclear school. However, I immediately recognized that being in nuke school was not my personality. I could tell I did not fit in. So this is one of my early failures in the military, apart from civilian life. One of my first failures was failing out of nuke school to be a machinist mate on a ship in Virginia. And then again, when I got to Virginia, I was on a ship. Those of you who are watching, if you're in the military, that ship life is not enjoyable. I was arguably at one of those points where I was at rock bottom, being on deployment on a ship, 26 years old, with people who almost had given up. They realized that they couldn't achieve much more than being on a ship and just doing horrible jobs on a ship. Some of the work you do on a Navy vessel is some of the worst. None of the work seemed like it ever paid off. Painting the hull of a ship, deck grinding a ship, painting a ship, constantly maintaining equipment on a ship just for it to just break again, and for you to work on it and get no recognition, nothing worthwhile. However, if you enjoy that kind of work, then go ahead. If HVAC technicians, all that stuff, all those kind of qualifications you get out of the military is hugely beneficial. But for me personally, it wasn't something that I enjoyed. When I was on the ship in deployment, some EOD guys were on the ship as we were doing operations with the Marines and getting guys greenside from our Navy vessel. It's kind of a hopping off point, so they can get in greenside and go do some work. While they were on the ship, I was interacting with them. I was in the kitchen at this point because I was such a pain in the ass to my command or my auxiliary unit that I think it's called cranking, if I remember correctly. I was working in the kitchen, so while I was in the kitchen, I was able to discuss with the people that would come on our ship, the USS Gravely, and EOD. These EOD guys seemed fucking awesome. They had the coolest job. They did some cool shit. Not a very recognizable rate in the Navy, but if you're in special operations, those guys were pretty badass, and I thought that was the coolest fucking thing if I could meet an EOD tech. They were all jacked, didn't shave, walked around whatever clothes they wanted to. Everybody respected them. So at that point, I realized that was something that I wanted to do, and I did it eventually. It was 2 years. I got to the ship in May of 2015, and I left for EOD school, dive prep in Chicago, June of 2017. So it was exactly 2 years of me on the ship and doing all the interview process, all the mud pupping, which was fucking brutal. And it wasn't until later that I learned how important the physical struggle, that framework, that groundwork that it set me up for later in life has proved to be, it's something I could always fall back on. Is I could always tell myself I went through some horrible training where you're just beyond smoke. You're running PSTs back to back. You're fucking smoked. You're running as fast as you can for miles and miles and miles, and the only thing you can do is just keep on going, because there was no way I was going to quit. So I ended up passing EOD school, EOD prep, so I moved down to Florida dive school, which again was a huge kick in the dick. Some of the physical training that I went to, it wasn't equivalent to BUD/S, but it's the next best thing. we had a lot of guys who failed out of buds that didn't even make it through dive school, which was a huge eye opener because at that point I knew, everyone knows what buds is and how insanely difficult that is. So I was, that was something for me to, give myself a little pat on the back that if I was able to pass EOD school, that it was one of the more difficult things a person can go through. And that just going through that and succeeding and being able to have that mental fortitude to get stronger and stronger every day, it did more for my mental psyche and my mental health than any YouTube video or psychiatrist or therapist could ever do. It's something that every male should go through, in my opinion. Because you could always fall back on it. You could always fall back on knowing that you did something extremely difficult that no one could ever do. If you can get through that, you can get through most things in life. And that was one thing that's led me to be successful later on in life. So I went, after I finished dive school, which was a great time, by the way. You're in Florida, Panama City Beach at dive school. World-renowned dive school, U.S. Navy dive school. You get to do awesome dives, awesome training, rebreather rigs, scuba. You get it, and one thing that a lot of people don't mention is the friends that you make. Forget any of the hometown buddies you've had, the kids you grew up with, the friends you make in the military, especially in special operations and special warfare programs. Those will be the best friends you'll ever have, because the struggles that you guys share together will last a lifetime. It's virtually an unbreakable bond that a lot of people don't have. Which is unfortunate, because I think a lot of young men need those kind of friendships and need those struggles to see what they're actually made of. You don't want to live your life being constantly comfortable, constantly safe, constantly happy, and just content. That's a horrible, boring life that you should not want to live. You should seek difficult, you should seek failure, you should seek something that's going to test you. How many people do you know at home, or friends that you know, that have just been spoon-fed by their parents? They've never had to make anything of themselves. They've never experienced any difficulty, any trials, any tribulations. They've just been happy. They've just been content. They've never experienced any difficulty. You don't want to be that kind of person. You should seek things that you could fail at. You should seek physical struggle. You should seek things that'll prove to you what you're made of. Think about it. How many people these days go through life and they'll have no idea what they're made of? They've never been tested. You want to be a man and a guy that's been fucking proven. Not even to anybody else, but prove to yourself. Right? And that's one thing that the military can offer. That's one thing that colleges will never, ever offer you, is proving yourself. Caveat, apart from STEM degrees, engineering, doctors, lawyers, you prove yourself in a mental way, which is arguably just as important as proving yourself physically. So after dive school, I went to EOD school, which is just learning the job of being an EOD tech, learning how to identify ordnance, missiles, rockets, grenades, different launcher systems out of airplanes, guided missiles, landmines, learning the tools to render safe all the ordnance. And this was actually much more intellectually difficult than I had sized up. I didn't realize how difficult it would be, but it was a much more thinking man's game, which I appreciated. It wasn't as in the books, literature specific as I had thought it was, which I appreciated. I'm not always struggled with book and college and classwork. Fucking bullshit. I just couldn't sit still. My ADD's too extreme. But that was EOD school was around 6 to 8 months, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. I graduated in December of 2018, EOD school, out of Eglin Air Force Base. The Navy has a different road map than the Army, Air Force, Marines. We have to do another school, which is underwater, because we're the only EOD techs that take care of underwater ordnance, limpet mines, oh god, what's the goddamn torpedoes, all that stuff that underwater ordnance and the land side EOD techs don't take care of, as well as the IEDs and stuff. And then once I graduated EOD school, I went to jump school in Fort Benning, Georgia, which was just the fucking worst fucking thing. It was, I'm terrified of heights, and learned to find out I was terrified of diving, which was perfect for me, because every time I dove or jumped out of an airplane, it was another prove yourself that you're worth it kind of thing, which now I appreciate it much more. But jump school was just fucking miserable how the Army runs it. They literally run it for 18-year-old Army privates, which was, I could see why. And then I did some follow-on training, moved to Virginia Beach, Mobile Unit 2, and bought a house, did the EOD workups. I'm not really trying to get into the EOD life. This is more of a addiction to basically success, of personal success story, but I'm not going to bore everyone with the military aspect of things. I just wanted to get into the way the military was a mechanism for me to prove myself and get sober. And the things I learned in the military, just apart from meeting my wife and having kids and what the military was able to offer me, the friendships for one, the structure, the discipline, is something that will never be taken away from me. That is something I was able to prove to myself, and I can now use that going forward into any job I could apply for. I have a top secret clearance. I was in the military for 10 years. Any job application you put on EOD Tech, I was part of a Secret Service detail too. You put any of the stuff I have on my resume, people look at and they're blown away, right? That's something the military has to offer me. I'm not going to get into the politics of the military or what happened as to why I got out. You could DM me, get it with me offline. I could discuss all that. But this video is for the 18 to 24-year-old guy or dude or whatever, 18 to 24-year-old male that is struggling, stuck at home in a bullshit relationship, in a bullshit fucking college degree, or you may have just graduated college and you're 27 to, I think the statistic I read was 25 to 37% of people who go to college never get a job in the discipline that they studied at college. So if this is you, if this is one of your liberal arts graduate students, or you're going into college for liberal arts, take a second guess. Listen to this video. You can DM me. I'll even give you my number or email, and we can discuss offline what the military can offer you. So it's something that doesn't get discussed because the college and societal apparatus that obligates people to go to college is a massive scam and has proved to be so detrimental to so many people that it can't be discussed, because the college scam has to be carried on, because if they don't, the amount of money they'll lose is enormous. So battling with addiction, battling with vices, and it could be anything. I was able to to prove to myself that I didn't need any of those vices. I didn't need the heroin. I didn't need any of the pills to lead a prosperous and successful life. And when I say successful, I'm not a multimillionaire. I'm not a millionaire. I'm a happy father, a happy husband with a great family, a great wife, great children. And that how you can define success in many ways. For me, that is how I'm personally successful. If you want to do the Andrew Tate kind of thing, that's on you. I don't think you're going to find much happiness apart from whatever else he espouses. I'm not personally into the treating women like shit and banging a bunch of broads. That's a pretty zero-sum game to play. So, if you can relate to this, comment, DM, get in the comment section. Let me know your struggles. Let me know if you want to talk. I'll be an open resource. You don't need these. The therapists that I hear people talking to are liberal wackadoos. So, subscribe if you want. Get in the comment section. Let me know if I can help. Hey, I got 2 viewers. What's up?